Okay? So each of you should have been able to download 2 specific documents that are intended for this training. One of them is being shared with you right now. It's the Excel shortcut keys. It's a 4-page document that has general program shortcuts. And we are going to be going through this today for the training. We're going to be focusing on the ones that are highlighted in yellow. However, there are so many shortcuts here that could be great for you to practice with any Excel spreadsheet. So I definitely encourage you to, when you have a chance, to go through the ones that we're not going to review today. But for the purpose of this training, we will be focusing on the ones that are highlighted in yellow, because between Dharma, Kathy, and I, we just came to the conclusion that these are really the ones that are most helpful when using Excel. So we are going to be going through these, and you should have also had the other document to download, which was an Excel document. It looks like it's from File Download Manager. It has a bunch of student demographic information here. So this is what we're going to be working with when we're going through the Excel shortcut keys. Okay, and I will be probably going back and forth, or while you're viewing this training, please feel free to have the Excel shortcut document, the Excel shortcut keys document opened on the side. You could probably reduce the screen on your Zoom window, and then also have the Excel shortcut keys on the side. But I'm definitely going to try to jump back and forth with doing that. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and start from that Excel shortcut keys with the first set, which are general program shortcuts. Okay, and the one we're going to, like I said, we're going to be focusing on the highlighted ones. So this is a spreadsheet that, I'm working on, and let's say I'm in the middle of, changing some things here, whatever it might be, putting in the student's name or adding a student. I'm gonna insert here, and now I'm like, okay, I want to go ahead and save this. From your keyboard, you would click Control S, and it's going to save. Now you see you did that very quickly. I'm going to do it again so that I can explain to you how you're going to know that it's saving. Not only does it say up here saved, which I mean is obvious, but maybe you're thinking, well, how do I know when was the last time that it's saved? When you do anything and you go to save it and you click Control S, it says, before it goes to saved, it says saving. And it's very quick. It's a little blue circle that goes, it says saving, and then it says saved. That's the shortcut from the keyboard. Many of you may know that you just go to File and you could click Save, but again, that takes a moment. It might throw you out of your loop when you're working on the spreadsheet. So if you just click the Control Save, saving and save. I'm sorry, Control S. Okay, so that is the first shortcut we're looking at. Okay, then we're going to look at how to undo an action and how to redo an action. Okay, so here I'm going to change it back to the student's name, and I'm going to add something here. And I'm going to say, oh, I want to get it back to what I was doing before. I want to undo this action. So that's going to be from your keyboard, Control Z. Okay. And if you continue clicking Control Z, it's going to undo the change that you just made. Okay. Now the thing is that when that Control Z is going to work when you're within the same cell. If you were to make a change here, if you were to do something here, and you spelled the name wrong or whatever, okay, but you don't realize that right now, you move to another cell, you cannot go back to that cell. Oh, you could. I'm sorry. You could go back to the cell and click Control Z. It just also depends on the last time that you saved it. So just be mindful with Control Z. In some cases, you have to see what it is that you want to undo to see if it actually will do it right then at that moment. Okay. So that's for undo. There's also Control Y, which is to redo something. So let's say I undo that change I just made, and I'm like, oh, you know how it is. You're usually just you sometimes are working on 50 things at once, and you undo it, and you're like, oh no, I need it back. I need to redo it. Control Y will redo the change that you had made before. So Control Z is undo. Control Y is going to be to redo what you want to do, what you want to change. Okay. Again, those are keyboard shortcuts. You do have the undo and the redo button here at the top. You see the arrows? This one going to the left is undo. This one going to the right is redo. So they are up here. But again, the purpose of a lot of these shortcuts are to not have to grab the mouse and go up there and do it. You just do it really quick on the keyboard, the Control Z and the Control Y. Okay? So that's for undo and redo an action. Okay, so, and I know that this might happen to you sometimes and you might not realize what happened. You know how sometimes when you're in Excel or you're on Word and you start clicking a bunch of things and then something disappears. Like, let's say this ribbon up here, okay? I think if I click this, it goes away. It's happened to me. And then you're there and you're like, oh my God, what just happened? Where did it go? How do I click it? Do I click here? Oh no, that's not it. And you sit there clicking everything you can because you can't figure out how to get back this ribbon, okay? Well, hopefully it's happened to you and I'm not the only, crazy one that's happened to, but this has all disappeared and now I don't know, I can't do this. I need to see it all at once. So if it's disappeared, if you ever lose the ribbon at the top, all you have to do is click Control F1. So Control F1 will bring it back. Okay. Now, let's say you become comfortable with, you need to just look at your spreadsheet. You don't need to look at the ribbon. You want to have less distractions on the page. Pressing Control F1 will also hide the ribbon, which is what we did when we clicked this little arrow. But that's like if you're collapsing the ribbon, unintentionally, or you know what you're doing. But in this case, if you're familiar with the ribbon and you want it to go away right now for the purpose of what you're working on, you click Control F1 and it will go away. Oh, I need it back. Control F1 again, and it shows up again. Okay. So that one is for hiding and showing the ribbon at the top. Okay. Okay, so then the next one that's highlighted, Control F, search in a spreadsheet or use find and replace. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example here of what we would use the find and replace for. Okay, so let's say you are a school assessment coordinator and this is the spreadsheet that you're working on, and let's say that the room numbers that are here in column N are actually testing rooms. Okay, this is where all these kids are going to be testing, let's just say. All right, as I've prepared all this document, I spent so much time on it, and I realized that all the students who are assigned to room 2123 can actually not test there because there's an AC issue, or the desks have been removed, or there's a mold issue in the room, or whatever the case may be. I don't want to have to go through this page, through this spreadsheet, because right now this spreadsheet is actually pretty long. We're going down, way down. I don't want to go through the whole spreadsheet and have to change these room numbers one by one. I know already that room 2123 is not available, and I'm going to have to move all those 2123 students to 2120. So I am going to find and replace 2123, and I'm going to replace it with 2120. Okay, so first I'm going to show you what not to do on an Excel spreadsheet when you need to replace something like that. And then I'm going to show you how to do it correctly. Okay, so I'm going to click Control F, and this little box is going to show up, find and replace. Before I show you about finding and replacing, let me just show you the benefit of Control F. If you are looking at this huge spreadsheet and you need to find one student specifically by student ID or by last name, if they have a very unique last name, whatever the case may be. You just type it here, and I'm not familiar with any of these student IDs, so I'm going to type in one of the last names that I am familiar with, which is that Gark one. And when I click Find Next, it's going to take me to that student. And if I'm like, okay, that's not the student I need, I could continue clicking this, okay? And it's going to take me to all the ones that fall on, that have that within their data, okay? So Control F is a really, really great feature, okay? But right now I'm using it to change, remember I told you those testing rooms, I'm changing 2123 to 2120. So I'm going to click Control F, and I'm going to, you see here you have the option of find, and here you have the option of replace. So I'm going to click replace. I'm no longer looking for that. I'm looking for 2123, and I want to replace it with 2120. Now, because I know that the rest of my document here has already been prepared and it's good to go, I don't want to just click replace all, because I don't want it to find all the 2123s and replace it with this. I want to go through one by one. I know that I'm not going to be changing 1,000 of 2123. I'm just going to be changing the few that we're supposed to test there. So I don't want to click replace all. I want to first find them and then replace them. So again, remember, this that I'm showing you right here is what not to do when you want to be a little bit more specific. I have not selected anything on the spreadsheet. I have just clicked Control F and I typed what I wanted to find. So 2123, find next. See, it's taken me over here because it is going to find any document, any data within this worksheet that has that in it, whether it's just that alone or not. So for example, I clicked find what, 2123, and I clicked find next, and look what it took me. It took me over here to the student ID. I don't want the student ID. I want the test room. So I don't want to do anything with that one. Find next, find next. Okay, it's still taking me there. It's taken me back over here to the test room. So I'm like, okay, you know, this is what I want to replace. I would click replace. But then look, the next one that it takes me over is to the student ID. So that's a big time waster. You don't want to do that. If you know that what you needed to find and replace are room numbers that fall within a certain column, we're going to close this. We're going to come over to that column for testing rooms. Go all the way to the top. We're going to select that column only, and we're going to click Control F. We're going to do the find and replace again. All right. And now it is going to limit the find and replace to this column. So I'm going to want it to replace that one. You see over here, it's selecting it as it finds it. It's becoming white as it finds it. I'm going to replace that one, replace that one, replace that one, and so on and so forth. And it's going to continue on until I have no more 2123s to replace. But it is no longer looking under the student IDs. I have reduced it to the column that I need it for. Okay. So this is a great feature, and that's it. Now, when it tells me that the Microsoft Excel cannot find a match, that means it has found all of the 2123s. And as I've told it to go, it has been replacing it with 2120. This is such a great feature that is not only available on Excel. Control F is also available on Word. It's available on PDFs when you open up PDFs and you need to search a specific student or for a specific document. I had to actually use this recently when I was switching something over from 2019 to 2020. We were going to use pretty much almost the entire document, but it kept saying spring 2019. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go through this whole thing and change all these 2019s to 2020. Well, no, I didn't have to. I had to, and I knew that everything that was under 2019 was going to be 2020, even if it was a date or if it was spring 2019. So all I did is I did the Control F, and I found and replaced all the 2019s with 2020. And it saved so much time. And it also helped avoid the case of when you miss one of those, when you miss one of those 2019s and don't replace it with 2020. In this particular case, if I would have missed one of these room numbers and left it, that would have thrown off, you know, any information that I would have needed for that. Okay, so find and replace is a very great time-saving feature. Okay, I'm going to close Control F. Now the next document is moving around in a worksheet or cell. So this one is great. All of these are great, but this one is great to use when you really are looking at a spreadsheet such as this one that has so much information on it, and you really do need all of the information, but for some reason you want to move to the very bottom of the worksheet, and in this case we want to move to the very bottom right of the worksheet. So I am just going, I believe you don't have to click the cell, so let me try to do it right now without clicking anything. Let me just, well, now that doesn't help because I clicked. So when we click Control End, and I want you to know that the End and the Home button that I'm about to refer to are the ones on your keyboard that are closest to the page up and page down. Okay, so you should have a Home button and an End button. But we're going to go ahead and click Control End. When I clicked Control End, it took me to the very bottom right cell on the worksheet. Okay, so I am in the last row in the furthest right cell. Okay, so that took me all the way to the bottom, just in case I need to work on the bottom for anything, or I want to start from the bottom going up, or you know, whatever the case may be. And then if I want to move back to the beginning of the worksheet, I would just click Control Home, and it took me back up to the top. So let's say in that particular case, I was all the way at the bottom right. But let's say I'm somewhere here in the middle. I'm here. I was looking at this particular student. Okay, and oh, I want to go way up, back up to the top. I don't want to sit here scrolling because you know that, you know, it takes forever, takes a long time. I don't want to do that. Okay, I was already wherever I was somewhere down here. Okay, if I click Control Home, it is going to take me to the top left of the spreadsheet, to the beginning. This is where I need to be. Okay, so Control End and Control Home. Control End is going to take you all the way to the bottom right corner of an Excel worksheet, and Control Home will take you all the way to the top left of that worksheet. Okay, so those are great shortcuts to maneuver around the spreadsheet because you don't want to be scrolling. This takes forever. Then it all starts looking like a blur. You just click that Control End or Control Home, and boom, and you're there in a second. Okay. Now, this one is very simple. Again, this, like I've told you with so many of these shortcuts, they're intended so you don't really have to use your mouse so much. But the page up and page down buttons on your keyboard do serve as scrolling, as a method to scroll. So here we're at the top of the worksheet, student IDs. Let me go over here to course title. Okay, I want to search my course title, or I want to go down my course titles. So when I click page down, what it does is it moves me. Let me do that again so you can see. So right here, I can see all of the data that is from row 1 down to row 22. Row 23, it's kind of like cut off in half. So whenever you click page down, it is going to take you to the next row that you have not been able to see in its entirety. Okay, so like I said, here we're from row 1 to row 22. So when I click page down, it's going to start at row 23, and it's going to give me this set of information here. So it goes from 23 to 44. When I click page down, it's going to start at 45 because 45 was cut off in half. Okay, page up is going to do the same thing. Page up is going to take you to the next set of data that fills up your spreadsheet, that fills up your screen. Okay, so page up is going to give me half of 45, take me up to 23. Page up again, I'm all the way at the top. So you can just continue clicking page down. Okay, I do see that I have a hand raised. Yes, Maria Uceta?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there a way to freeze the first row so that when you're scrolling to different lines, you can still see the heading?
Yes, so let me show you about that one right now. I know I went over it in the basic Excel training, but that's a great one to use, especially when you're going through all the data. So let's say you just want the first column. You want the first column frozen. So what you would do is you would come over up here to, is it review or view? I always get them, it's not review, it's view. So when you click on view, you would click freeze panes and you would click the little down arrow. Now there's different methods to freeze panes, but I'm going to show you first the top row one, and then I'll show you the other ones that are beneficial. So freeze panes, you can freeze the top row or the first column. So when you freeze the top row, see it kind of adds like a little bit of a darker border to the bottom of that row, but as you go scrolling down, that top row stays there. So you're able to see that. Another thing that you can do is, let's say this particular spreadsheet continued on for a while. You know how sometimes they continue on with a plethora of columns of information, and you want to keep the student's name because you want to know what student it is that you're looking at. So you can, if you were to click here, freeze first column, in this particular case, the first column is the student ID. So if you wanted just the student name, you could always, you know, just grab this one. I'm going to cut this from here. I'm going to put it over here, insert cut cells. Okay. And I just did that for the purpose to show you that now when you click freeze first column and you continue moving on, that first column is going to stay there. Okay. Now let's say you wanted to freeze the first column and like let's say you wanted to freeze the student's name, student ID, and flea ID for whatever reason. You would click the cell after where you want to stop freezing it, okay? And you would come up here to freeze panes and you'd click, first let's unfreeze because we did a lot of freezing there. So you want to make sure you always start with unfreeze. When you click the cell there, you click freeze panes. Now what it has done is it has frozen my first column, my first row, and it has also frozen up to the set of columns that I want to appear there. Now, as a school assessment coordinator and a teacher, when I was a teacher, I used this when the scores would come out, the FSA scores or school grades or anything like that. You know that you can click it to come out on an Excel spreadsheet, and I wanted to keep the school information there, or the, you know, it was a school information and I forgot what else, but I would open it up on Excel and I would freeze it because then as I moved to the side, I wanted to see what it was that I was looking at. So so you have those options. You have the option to freeze the top row, to freeze the first column, or then to freeze a set amount of data to continue on. Okay, is that good, or did you have another question?
No, that was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and unfreeze those panes. Unfreeze them all. Okay, but yeah, freeze panes is an awesome one as well, and it's just so great when you're working with so much data. Okay, so we were looking at, okay, so I showed you about the page up and down. That's to move one screen up or down in a worksheet. Okay, now we're going to look at selecting cells. And on that document that hopefully you were able to download the Excel shortcut keys, we went ahead and highlighted everything under selecting cells because we just found that they were all so beneficial. So we're going to go ahead and go in order there. We have the shift plus left or right arrow to extend the cell selection to the left or right. So for example, if I'm working here on this particular one and I want to, instead of just grabbing the mouse and selecting everything here, okay, I want to go, as I'm looking at the information, seeing what it is I'm going to select, I would just click Shift. And then if I click the right arrow, it's going to go moving to see what I want to select. Okay, I want that information. I want that. Now, when you're only doing like 2 or 3 cells, like 2 or 3 columns, or information from 2 or 3 cells and in columns that are right next to each other, and you have your mouse, you know, it's super easy to grab. This one becomes really, really good when these spreadsheets just go continuing on, because I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but you go selecting something and then just it goes crazy and it starts selecting everything, and then you have to come back and do all of this. So when you're clicking the Shift to the right, it'll go selecting as you need it. Okay, same thing will happen. Oh, I want to choose a course title, period, and term, and EOC A1 status. I'm not going to click right, I'm actually going to click left, and it's going to go selecting from there. Okay, so Shift, right or left. Okay, now keep in mind when you are selecting data, let's say I'm selecting right here, and I go to the right. When I go to the left, it is not going to continue selecting this way. It is going to actually undo what I've selected thus far. So first I clicked Shift right. Now if I go and click Shift left, it's going to go undoing what I've selected before. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Whenever you have anything selected, if you want to add something, you're gonna have to just start from the beginning with that. But Control right or left, I'm sorry, Shift right or left will help you selecting the cells. Then, now let's say you are on here and you want to select this entire row, okay? But you don't want to go through doing like this, or you don't want to go through clicking Shift right because you know it goes on forever. All you have to do here is click Shift and space. So Shift and space bar, and it is going to select the entire row. Now in this particular case, it selects the entire row, even what goes after data that you have there. But there's one here that specifically makes it where it's only the data that's there. But Shift space is going to select the entire row. And if you want to select the entire column, you would click Control space. So Control space is the entire column. And I guess the way you can maybe remember the difference between selecting the entire column or the entire row is with Control space. Control starts with a C, C for column. Sometimes I do little things like that to try to remember so I don't have to refer to a cheat sheet. But Control space, and it doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to click from the top of the column. If you could be here and say, you know what, I want this entire column. Control space, and it's going to select the entire column for you. Okay, so remember, Control space is the column. Shift space is is just that row. Okay, then we are going to have to select the entire worksheet, and there's different ways to do this, but the way to do it with just the keyboard. So there is Control Shift space. That's going to choose the entire worksheet. Now, the difference between this, see, it selects the entire worksheet. So there's Control Shift, there's Control Shift space. There's also, if any of you are familiar with it, Control A. That selects the entire worksheet as well. Control A is a little better because if you see, Control A just stops where the worksheet stops. Whereas Control Shift space is going to continue on. Oh, well, you know, I think after the Control A, select all, that it reduced it to just the worksheet. I guess maybe it stays in the memory of Excel, that might be all you want. So the Control Shift space, you know, it'll just take some playing around with that, but that is another way to select all. I usually, for selecting the entire worksheet, just use Control A if I just want to use my keyboard, because I feel like the Control Shift space is just too many keys and you got to think about it. So Control A for selecting the entire worksheet. Now, another thing, in case you're working up here and you know whatever, another way to select the entire worksheet is this little icon in the top left corner. looks like a little triangle. This is also like a select all icon. Whenever you click that, it is going to select the entire worksheet. And this particular one is going to continue on, even past where you have data. So that one might continue on. Control A could be your best bet for selecting the entire worksheet. Okay. But that's if you need to select all the data within the worksheet. Now, so we did here, there is shift, control, down. Okay, so remember when I was teaching you, well, I should say remember, it was like 2 seconds ago, when I was teaching you about the selecting the entire column, we did control space, right? So let me do that really quick. Control space. And control space is going to select the entire column, whether there is data on it or not. Okay, if you only wanted to select the select within that column and the column that has data in it, like the cells that have data in it within that column, it's going to be shift, control, and then either up or down. So for example, if you're in the middle of your worksheet and you click shift control up, okay, up or down, whichever way, but it's still going to select your entire column up until when you have the data. Okay, so it's selecting all of it, and we still need to go down. So, okay, now all of it is selected. That's going to be beneficial when you have a spreadsheet like this that has so much data on it, and let's say you only want to apply grid lines or borders to that first column, and you don't want to have to select, you don't want it to continue on to cells that don't have data in it. So, there, I did that, and there. Okay, so now that first column, so when you click shift control up or down, it's going to select the entire thing. Okay, let me go all the way to control home to go to the top. Say I want to do the same thing with Flea ID, shift control down. Okay, if you do it from the very top of the column, it is going to select it all in one shot. Okay, so let's go ahead and undo everything. Okay, this is from when I moved it, control home. Okay, so that's going to be for selecting the entire column, and the same thing is going to apply for selecting the row. The only difference is you are going to click shift control and then the right arrow, and that is going to select that entire column. I'm sorry, it's going to select that entire row. Same thing if you wanted to highlight this, you know, that's what's beneficial for that. Oh, I want to get this entire one there, and you see it's did from there because it didn't select. Okay, but it'll keep doing that. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to undo this. Okay. Now and then I showed you the select all. Okay, so for editing cells, and we're almost coming a little bit to the end of this Excel shortcut keys document. So on the editing cells, I'm going to show you how to add or edit a cell comment. Now, cell comments could be if you are using the spreadsheet yourself and you just need to add a little comment to some information that's on a cell, or it's even great when you need to send a spreadsheet to somebody, to one of your colleagues or to your administrators, and you want to put certain comments on certain data or cells. So the way to do it without the shortcut would be, oh, I want to add a comment here for barrel area. If I right click it, I would choose from all of these options, I would choose new comment, and it would come up and let me type. But the shortcut for that without having to go through to right clicking and all of that would be shift F2. When you click that, it's going to come up for a comment, that you can put, you know, 6/1/2020. Student withdrew, or whatever you might want to put there. Okay, so that's good for those comments. Now, the Shift F2 are going to be kind of comments that you have just put up on your own, that you wanted to be there as information about the student. Okay, so whenever you move away from that cell, it will stay with a little kind of like a bookmark or a dog ear on that cell, letting you know, hey, there's a comment here. If you hover over it, it will come out. If you double click, or you don't double click, if you click it there, you know, it comes out so you can read what it says. But let's say maybe you want to change that, or you want to fix it, and you click Shift F2, it's going to let you edit it. Okay, you can also, you would just right click and no, you can delete it, but it's still going to show up there because you added the comment. So you would have to right click to delete that note or delete that comment. Okay, the one that comes up without the shortcut, and I do want to let you know this because I think it can be beneficial. If you want a living document that they can respond on and they can let you know, hey, I don't think that you should include that, or maybe you're going to send it to an ESOL specialist and they're going to tell you, hey, the student just exited ESOL, whatever the case may be. You would click that new comment and you would put here, it's going to say your name, and you're going to put here, okay, that's going to stay there. Now, when you send this to somebody, okay, let's say you send it to your ESOL specialist, hey, look through this spreadsheet, please look at the students with comments or with notes on them and let me know. And they come to it, they can reply. Yes, student is still in ESOL, blah, blah, blah. And they're going to send it to you. Okay. And that's going to come up there. You can delete whatever, or you can click this and resolve the thread or delete the thread. So that's very good when you want an interactive Excel spreadsheet. That's not necessarily a shortcut, but that's, you know, I just wanted to show you that. I think it's very beneficial. It's a good feature that it has. Okay, so Shift F2 will just open it up when you want to make a quick comment for somebody. So Shift F2 is a great feature. Okay. We did highlight this one. I don't care too much for it, but I'm going to show you because it is on here highlighted. So if you are adding any information to a cell, whatever the case may be, and you want to undo that, you can, or you know, delete that information from the cell, you click escape, it'll leave. But you can do the same thing with the delete button, not necessarily the backspace button, because that one you have to press continuously. Okay, but if you go up and you click delete, it's going to get rid of it. So escape is just another way to do it, but delete is perfect enough. Don't complicate anything that's not broken. Okay. The last three that we're going to go through are actually beneficial shortcuts that can be used not only in Excel, but also in Word. So we're going to look at adding or removing bold to the contents of a cell, selected data, or selected cell. Same thing with italicized, and same thing with underline. So let's say I know that, let me click Control to go to the top. I want to go ahead and do the top column, I'm sorry, the top row of my spreadsheet. I want to, well, let me teach you this. I went over this in the basic Excel, but I want to show you. If I select the entire worksheet, and you see how some of these columns are not to the size that they need to be. That's why you can't see exceptionality, level, things like that. On any of these, when you click, double click whenever the two arrows come out, what it is going to do to all of the data in the spreadsheet is it is going to make sure that you can see all of the data within each of these columns. Okay, so now you can see ESC exceptionality or ESOL level or whatever. So let me show you again. When you select the entire thing and you want to make sure that you're able to read all of the headers without having to wrap the text, You would just double click any of the columns and it's going to make it where you can read them all, okay? But let's say I want to go ahead and make everything in this row bold, okay? You would just select the row or the column that you want to use and click Control B, and it's going to make it bold. Let's say I want to make it italicized as well. It's still selected. Control I, italicize. You know what? I want to underline all of this information. I'm going to Control U. Okay? And now it is all underlined. And you could do that to an entire column. Now keep in mind that, let me show you really quick. So you see how this was all bolded, italicized, and underlined. So when I select this whole thing, if I click Control B, before it makes this bold, it is going to undo the bold that I have on here. Because I've selected this column and right now bold is selected. What I haven't applied it to is I haven't applied it to the rest of the data. So if I click Control B, it's going to unbold this, but I click Control B again, now everything is bold. Same thing with italicized. Click it again, everything's italicized. Okay, so Control B, Control I, and Control U is going to be bold, italicized, and underlined. And it even gives you the shortcut when you hover over those features. Okay, so that's from the shortcut keys document that we have. We do have a couple of extras that we're going to go over with you guys that are also very beneficial when you're using any data. And these are not on this Excel shortcut keys document. It's not on any document that we've prepared, but I'll go ahead and run it by Dharma and Kathy if we want to prepare this and put it there where it could be something extra you could download. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to go through is we're going to go through text formula. Okay, now for this particular spreadsheet, these student IDs are, I'm just going to undo everything. You know what? Let me select everything. I'm going to unbold everything and italicize. Okay, so for the purpose of this spreadsheet, the student IDs are actually 7-digit IDs, which is great because that's what it is. But there's a lot of times where sometimes we get spreadsheets sent to us where the leading zeros are taken out of the student IDs. Okay, so for example, this student, if I got a spreadsheet that took out the leading zeros for this student, it wouldn't say that his ID was 0691234. It would say that it was 691234. And then I have to look and say, okay, there's 6 numbers there, so I'm missing 1 0. Okay, it's a time waster. It's pointless to have that happen. So let's say I got this spreadsheet. There's this is a 7-digit student ID, but let's say that our ID is actually supposed to be 8 digits. So I want to fix this. I'm going to insert a column here. And what I'm going to do is that I am going to use a feature called text formula. Okay, so for text formula, what I am going to do is I'm going to click equal. Whenever you click equal, that means that you are going to start inputting a formula onto Excel. So I'm going to click equal and I'm going to start typing in text. Whenever you start typing anything after you equal, it's going to come up with all the different possibilities for formulas within Excel. But I know that this one is the text formula. So I'm going to click equal and I'm going to start typing in text. Okay, then I'm going to open parentheses. I'm going to select the column that I want. Okay, I'm sorry, the cell that I want. I'm going to click comma, and then I'm going to click quotations, and I'm going to put how many zeros I want within that text. Not zeros, I'm sorry. How many characters I want within that text. Okay, and in this particular case, I want it to be an 8-digit ID. So I'm going to put in 8 zeros. Why? Because I want it to look at that text, and if there are not 8 characters there, then I want the first character that it's going to get to be a 0. Okay, so I'm going to put in 8 zeros here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm going to close a quotation and close the parentheses. I'm going to click enter. See what it's done? It's gotten this ID number and it has added the leading 0 to it. And it has given it to me now 00691234. So that's what I want, because, you know, for this particular school district I'm in, we have 8-digit student IDs. But you know what? I want to apply it to this whole thing. How am I going to do that without having to drag this? I'm going to select that cell, and you see this little dark green square in the corner. I'm going to hover over it until it comes out to a perfect little cross, just like that, and I'm going to double click it. And now it has applied that formula to the entire column where I have data. So you see this student ID doesn't start with a 0, it starts 9321234, but because of the text formula, it's added the leading 0. So that's a great time saver for you when you get spreadsheets that don't have the zeros, okay? So that one is great, text formula. Definitely recommend that one. All right. Now, the other thing we're going to do is text to columns, okay? So let me delete this so we don't get confused. Okay. You see these student names? I did not download these student names from file download as last name, first name. I chose student name. But now I want to have that information separated. I don't want it to be last name and first name in one column. I want it to be last name in one column, first name in the other. So in order to do that, I am going to do text to columns, which is found under data. So when you click data here at the top, you click data, it's over here under data tools, text to columns. So when you click text to columns, it's going to come here to convert text to columns wizard. So we're just going to use the delimited one. Don't worry about the fixed width. For the purpose of what we're doing, we're just going to focus on delimited. We're going to click next. So now what it is telling me is this screen lets you set the delimiters your data contains. You can see how your text is affected in the preview below. Okay, so I don't want there to be tab. I'm going to unclick that. I know that if I want to separate this, I want it to basically get the information from before the comma and from after the comma and separate that. Okay, so I'm going to click comma. When I click comma, let me unclick it really quick. You see how it shows up right here, the data preview, how it shows up in that cell, right? In that particular column. Last name, comma, space, first name. I want to select comma. So look what it did. It got rid of the comma, and now it's separated the last name and the first name into 2 separate columns. But I also want to get rid of the space that's after the column. And I'm going to show you what happens if I don't get rid of the space. When I click next, okay, that's what I want it to do. I want it column data format. I want it to be general. I'm going to click finish. It's going to tell me that there's already data here. Do you want to replace it? Okay. Okay. Look what happened here. I didn't create a separate column. So what it did is it pushed this over to grade, and it got rid of the grade level of the student. I don't want that. So it's very important that you create a column for it. Okay. So back to text to columns, delimited, just doing the comma, general. All right, let's finish. Look what it did. It separated that just like that. And if I want to apply it to everything, I click here and I double click here. I don't think it'll work because it's not a formula. So what you would have to do is you would have to select the entire column in order for that to apply. That whole double clicking will only be when there's a formula that you've put in or something that you've put in like you've manually entered that will apply to everything. But look at this. There is a space. You see that space right there that if I deleted it manually, okay, it came up. But I don't want to have to go through and delete that manually. So in order to do that, text to columns again, and I feel like showing it again and again, it becomes even more automatic for you. So the delimited, click next. So I wanted to get rid of the comma, but I also wanted to get rid of the space. Okay. And you know what? Let me cancel this. Remember, I want to show you the entire thing. Text to column, delimited, next. comma, space, and it even shows you here how there's no space at the beginning of the name. If you unclick space, you see it gives you the space. So I'm going to click space there. Next, I want it to be general, finish, and boom. Okay, text to columns helps you separate data that's there that has any delimited, not feature, a delimited like, oh my goodness, like a punctuation, and you want to go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, so that's text to columns. Again, another very good, beneficial thing. Let's go ahead and keep that there. Okay, now we have concatenate, which concatenate is it's a tricky word to say, but for this particular formula, it would just be equal concat. So you would use concatenate when you want to grab something from one column and another column and put it together. Okay, that's going to be good for example, when you want to do a coded list. If you want to post something and students have to find themselves not by their name, but by maybe student ID and homeroom teacher. Okay, so to give you an example, let's say I'm going to do my concatenate. Let me do it at the beginning. Let me insert a column here. Okay, so again, this is going to be a formula. For formulas, you are going to start it with the equal sign, and you are going to start typing concat. Okay, now when you start typing concat, you are going to open parentheses. Now I am going to want, for this particular purpose, I'm going to want it to be the student ID and the teacher name, and I have teacher name way down at the bottom. So I'm going to click this. Okay, now I'm going to insert what I want to be between the student ID and the, in this case, the teacher's name. So I'm going to click comma, and I'm going to put open quotes, and whatever I put here in the middle, maybe I want to put a dash. Just put a little dash. End quote, comma, and now I'm going to put the other column, the other cell information that I want to be there. So I'm going to scroll over here, and I'm going to choose it from here. Okay, come back up here. Doesn't matter where you are on the spreadsheet. If you have to go down here to get data, my formula is here, so I could just click here. I don't have to go all the way back. I'm going to click close parentheses, and now look what happens. Click enter. Okay, let me make this wider. Look at that. Student ID dash the teacher's name. Okay, and that's the formula that I've implemented. So if I want to add that formula for each of my students, I'm going to click this. I'm going to double click the dark green box, and it's going to apply for all of my students. I'm going to make this a little longer so it fits for everybody. But let's say now I look at it and I'm like, you know what? I don't want the dash. I want a slash, or I want a space before the dash and after the dash. I just come up here to my formula. I'm going to click space, click the end of the dash, space, enter, and it is going to apply. And you know what? I want it to do the same thing here. Select this, double click, and boom, it applies it. So concatenate is great when you need to grab information from one cell, from one column, and put it together with another column for any type of list that you want to do. In this case, it's going to be a list that's that's like an anonymous list that you want to post for students. So whatever benefit you can see for using it at your school, by all means do so, but that's what concatenate is. You're grabbing from one column and putting it together with another column for new information. Okay, so that's concatenate. Now we are going to look at grabbing text from beginning or end of a string. Okay, so for example, if I wanted to, this is when you want to get data from a column, from a certain cell, but you don't want it to be the full data that's mentioned there. In this particular case, let's look at student IDs. Let's say I just want it to be the first 5 numbers of the student ID. So to do this, you are going to click on the cell that you want to do the formula. We're going to click equal, and I'm going to want it to be the first 5 numbers of the student ID. So the first 5 numbers are to the left of the cell. So I'm going to click equal, and I'm going to click left, open parentheses. I'm going to click that I want it from here. Then I'm going to click comma, and I want it to just be 5 numbers. So I'm going to click 5. Close parentheses. And now it has gotten that student ID, and it's just given me the first 5 numbers. And if you want to change it to the first 4 numbers, you can change it to the first 4 numbers. Where this one is very helpful is if you are in a middle school or a high school that is administering the PSAT. Because the PSAT, the district requires that the student ID that's used for it begin with 130 and then include the 7 digits of the student's ID number. So let's say you get a spreadsheet and the student with the scores with the scores of the students, and the numbers that are there are like the student IDs that are there are 130 and then the student's 7 digits. But you want to go quick and you want it to just give you the student ID numbers. So the 130 starts to the left. So you're just going to want the 7 digits that are to the right. Okay. So instead of it being left, you would choose equal, right. Okay. And for this particular case, since I have this, short ID number here, I'm just going to click it. Let's say I want just the last 4 digits here. I'm going to click comma 4, close parentheses, and it's just going to give me the 4. So in that case of the 130 and the student ID, you know that after the 130, it's 7 digits. So you would just click right, whichever cell it is that you're starting with, comma 7, and it'll get you the last 7. So that one's really good when you want to take certain information off of a certain column. Okay, so then the next one is going to be, well, I think I showed you this before. Yeah, when you click the control down, it's going to take you all the way to the very bottom of the column. Control up will take you all the way to the very top of the column, so just so you know. But then we had trim. Okay, so trim is really good when you've gotten data that has spaces at the beginning of text in any column. Okay, so remember we did the spreading here. Let me see. Okay, let me use right here. I'll show you again the text to columns. So let's say I want to create something here, and I want to, let's say that this is a spreadsheet that I just got, and this is how the data is put here, right? I want to change it. I want to separate it and put it into 2 separate texts. So I'm going to do text to columns. I'm going to do the delimited. Okay. Oh, you can't do it with that. You cannot, because there is a formula there. Okay. So, oh shoot. I want to show you this one, but okay, I'm going to use this one here. And I'm sorry, I'm having a little bit of difficulty with showing you how to use this one. I wanted to use from the names. You saw how I got rid of the space after the comma, but let's say you got a spreadsheet sent to you that still had that space before the names, and it's already in a separate column that you don't need to switch. You don't need to put text to columns, but you need to get rid of that space. I'm going to show you how to do that. So let me just do a quick text to columns here in this column. I'm going to just get rid of the space. And I'm going to use a semicolon. Let me see if this even does anything. I don't think it will. Hold on. That's why I should have undone the text to columns that I did before with the names. Text columns, delimited, and let me just use a semicolon. See if this does what I need it to do. Is it going to do anything? No, it's not. Okay, just do this myself. All right, so let's say I have this information with a space over here. Okay, you see that there's a space at the beginning. And let's say, again, this is a spreadsheet that I have gotten from an outside source, and this whole space at the beginning of a cell is like throughout the spreadsheet in different things. I want to go ahead and trim that, because if not, I can't use it, or it messes up with the alignment of a lot of things on my spreadsheet. So I want to go ahead and trim that. In order to do that, I would create a new column for wherever I'm going to put that data. And I'm going to click equal trim, and then I'm just going to select, no, remember you need to do open parentheses. And if you see, it has gotten rid of that space. Let me make this smaller so that I'm not having to scroll so much. You see, it has gotten rid of that space. Here, there's a space at the beginning, and here there is not. Okay, so trim is, trim, you're not specifying whether you wanted to get rid of the extra spaces at the beginning or the end. What it's actually going to do is it's going to get rid of the extra spaces at the beginning and the end, in case anybody, when they were entering information in that cell, you know, clicked enter a bunch of times. Okay, so that's because that's a formula. If I had more data here, I would just double click and it would apply that to the rest of the data within that column. Okay, so that's trim. We already did find and replace. Okay, and that was actually pretty much it for all the shortcuts that can be used with Excel. And a lot of these shortcuts, like the find and replace, the control B, U, I, all of that can also be used on Word. Are there any questions? No? Okay. If there's no questions, then we are actually done for the day. We are going to be doing office hours on Fridays from 10 to 12, and then we also do the office hours from 1 to 3. And that's basically where you came to the training today. You know, you downloaded all the documents that we've sent to you all, but you had some more questions, or you wanted to do a little more like one-on-one practice or small group practice, by all means, please join the office hours. It'll be the same link like you came into the meeting today, and I'll be there if you want to go into Dharma's or Kathy's, whatever, and we can help you working on what we went over in the training today. Let me see, I think there's something in the chat. Okay, awesome. I'm glad it was very.
Everything was good. Very informative.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining me. And again, if you want any extra guidance or anything on the office hours on Friday, you can come see me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Barbara, have a great day, everyone.
You too. Thank you, Jenny. It was great.
Hi.
Have a great time, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.